cool.
Technical programming note, I was using this software, Auphonic. Yep, on podcast. Thanks. We're using the software called Auphonic. That is actually how we produced the previous episode. So if you want to know what Auphonic sounds like when an idiot uses it, then just look at our last episode, number 106, where we did advanced chart analysis, including Sonic, Obama, Lockheed Martin, 420, 69. There's another word in there.
Inu.
Inu, that's right. This saved me some time. So actually, we're going to continue using it. Again, I barely know how to use it. And just so you know what it looks like to make an episode, here's actually the checklist. But I try to have like multi-level audio. And yeah, I spend a lot of time doing that. And you can too. So have fun with that. Hey, there she's at. Do you want a sticker?
Yes.
Stickers right here. I got them all in a big ass pile. Right here. So, any sticker you want. Mr. 037, are you in fact?
Hey. So there was a bunch of hacks in December, and I guess this isn't a surprise to anyone. Usually these things are pretty high volume around this season. I don't know. That's from personal experience, I guess, something I've noticed every year. And this year in particular, there was a whole bunch of NFT-focused hacks. Actually, something that really sucks about these things, most components that have a vulnerability, they get a CVE. And it's very easy to digest. You go read the description. There's like CVSS metrics. You could read those, see what the impact is. In the Ethereum ecosystem, I barely ever see this. Usually someone steals millions of dollars and then the company goes bankrupt and everyone kind of just forgets about it. And some of these hacks, at least the ones in December, two of which, they seem quite similar, but they're very different. For those that don't know, a CVE is common vulnerabilities and exposures. It's just an identifier you give like a vulnerability, for instance. Something happens, there's something wrong with a component. You go to someone and you get a CV index, and so people are able to track it and remediate and tag other components that might be affected.
I personally have a CVE that I published, and CVE is kind of weird. Like I have one against Safari on Apple, but like the only way you can publish it is if Apple agrees, and kind of Apple has a little bit of an interest in not publishing them.
Yeah,
Someone explain what is CV briefly, if you can offer an insight into it.
Yeah, sure. CVE is common vulnerabilities and exposures, and it's just think of it as like a number. So like a unique number that you give to a certain component with a problem. And when they publish it, the CV, like typically it comes with a severity. So think high, medium, low. And these severities kind of just give you insight into what the impact is. So maybe it's a CV that is part of like a huge bug in some sort of software that allows you to exfiltrate all the user related data inside of it. So to track this kind of thing, you create an index and it just allows better tracking.
Okay, I do understand. So here is my second question. As you know, like every what they call for it, maybe covered thing going on in the market then in the December.
Yeah, so companies do a lot of stuff like that, right? To like hide these types of disclosures. That definitely does happen in the space. I think there's been a lot of newer regulations or improvements to regulations that have kind of improved this process, or at least made it so that you're forced to disclose these kind of things. Like the SEC does this thing where like if you get hacked and there's like user info involved and whatnot, then you have to like go out of your way and make a report to them, and that disclosure is made public, and now like everybody knows. CV just happens to be one of the longest used ones, and it seems to have worked so far.
Well, there's a special thing too, is because in software nowadays, the software is much more connected. Now, when attack came out for SSH, every device in your house was affected. You need to stop what you're doing and update everything. Like, unplug the internet. They needed a vocabulary to articulate that. They're like, okay, well, is there a hack on Mac and Windows and Linux and phones and Androids and PlayStations and televisions and LG and Samsung? Whoa, they're coming in through the woodwork. It's like, nah, it's really just one thing. And so having that number kind of, I don't know, for marketing reasons too.
Yeah. And connecting all this back to that list you got up front, like those two hacks right there have to do with old approvals. There was a whole list of libraries not disclosed not too long ago, like November 20th, around there. Could these library vulnerabilities be related to any of these two? I believe the flooring protocol one was the NFT holder function that they exploited. And then the NFT trader one was some sort of re-entrancy attack. So you kind of have an idea of the classification for the issue, but there's aside from that, you don't really have any other sort of information to go off of. The NFT trader one, I can tell you, I guess from reports that I saw, and there was some on-chain transactions too. The hacker was kind enough to return all of the NFTs he stole, and you got 10% bounty, which is kind of cool, I guess. It's, what's strange, actually, this whole bounty thing, I've seen this over and over again. A hack happens and then they get like a percent back. I've never seen anything like this in like the normal ecosystem. Usually the ecosystem is like, hey, you have like this, like there's like this bug bounty, you might get something if you report something interesting. A lot of the times you might get nothing at all. There's no payout. And a lot of times there's huge payouts. Like some companies have like the most insane payouts I've ever seen. Here it's like the complete opposite. It's like you steal everything first and then you get the reward at the end of it.
This is totally crazy. I have a folder of vulns just chilling that I'd never bothered to report, that are literally just chilling in this folder. I don't even have time to blog them. One of the vulns, it's for an L1 network, a top 5. The payout for bounties is like $2,000. It's not even worth it to write it up for $2,000 because you have to write it up. And like the other thing about, you have to convince people that it's a vulnerability, right?
Yep.
So like, and they're like, yeah. But if you just wait until it actually becomes hot, like somebody depends on that, well, now you went from medium to very high. Like I literally just have other crap that I need to block, and it's like not on my top of my list to go convince people why this is important. I'm pretty confident no one else found this. I mean, I'm reading like code in the client. I'm reading C code. I'm comparing the spec to the code. I was doing it for a thing. It took me a year talking to these people to even establish that it was $2,000 bounty. There's a lot of that. This is actually what got me into the security world. I have a blog. This is my first blog post. Was like I reported a vulnerability to a bank. You could trade other people's stock, like completely ridiculous. And they got me to sign an NDA. I waited 10 years and I published how much of an asshole this guy was for not fixing the problem and getting me to sign an NDA. And I was completely dumb. And now my policy is 2 weeks. You got 14 days. I'm publishing.
That's interesting. Like I guess in real component world, like you can, for instance, monitor a certain component for like, you can see logs coming in and stuff like that. And maybe things someone is testing for that you can kind of spot in the wild like that. And that allows you to like maybe close off a component before someone exploits it. But then in this ecosystem, right, as soon as you see that emit, it's already too late. It's already over. Unless maybe it's like a common library of some sort, and you have like another smart contract out there that has the same exact vulnerability.
We have copycats too. The most recent one, the one person was fixing the thing, and meantime, the MEV miners understood what it was and applied the same hack to a different one automatically.
Yeah.
Automatically. This is robot warfare. Until we're seeing 7- and 8-figure bounties open to the public, hotwired, automated, ready to pay out. The assertion fails and you get the pay. First one to get it gets it. When we have that, we're getting closer. And
even the bug bounties themselves, the cost barrier for them is a lot higher too. Yeah. Like if you go on sites like Zerodium, like, an Apple 0-click ODA is like $1.5 million. Here it's like your entire like market cap.
But if they're paying out 10% after the fact, then just pay them 5% before the fact.
Yeah.
But you have to have a credible payout.
Pretty funny.
And then who covers that 10%? That's another thing, because they're usually upside down because they don't have 10% liquidity.
Yeah, like it might come from the people, I guess, part of that liquidity, maybe even. So what's interesting about the NFT trader one, the people that actually paid off the 10%, I believe it was the guys behind Boring Ape. I thought that was interesting. And then aside from this, there was kind of one more hack that's worth calling out, and everyone already knows about this one. It's the Ledger one. Just kind of brings back the importance of centralized controls that are in place and how you should just be very careful with like these types of things just coexisting. The Ledger hack in particular, from what I understand, and there's a quote in there from TechCrunch as well, there was a former Ledger employee, and there was a phishing attack that happened, and that's kind of strange that a former employee would be a victim of a phishing attack. I mean, was he a former employee now, or was he a former employee like then? Because why should a former employee have access to company resources after the fact? That's just crazy. And then two, this employee's NPM JS account was also active and it still had access to production builds, from what it sounds like. And from there, they were able to push out a change that affected everyone else that was using Ledger kind of as a CDN. Be careful when you're out there. Like, don't just blindly trust the site. You know, a lot of these things happen kind of in the background. You don't even realize it. Those are pretty much all the hacks that I saw. Definitely more out there. I wouldn't doubt it. It really depends on the news kind of just, getting to you. I mean, right now, as we're sitting in here, there is multi-million dollar, smart contracts vulnerable at this very moment. No one knows about it,
Yeah. We had one episode, we were live, we found a vulnerability based on the latest bug in Solidity or something like that. Opens up on contracts. We found a vulnerability and we live with 10 of us on the phone. We're looking to do white hat and it's hard work. Like finding them, getting them to listen to you on a DM, sliding into DMs like that. That's a whole job. We gave up. We're like, okay, that's enough for now. We were doing it for like 2 hours. Like, okay, that's enough unpaid work for today. And we called it a day. We got other stuff to do. We got kids. We got other vulnerabilities.
I think we've brought this site up before on one of our episodes. Revoke.cash. It's a pretty cool site I came across. Has all these exploits kind of just listed out too. It gives you a brief summary on each one.
Yeah, this should be inside of your wallet too. It should just tell you.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, hey.
It was about the Ledger library. I DM'd both of you. The Ledger employee drained his own wallet through the same toolkit. So I sent that code to you.
Oh, yeah. This one was hilarious. This has to do with ordinals or inscriptions. Dumb contracts, as I like to call them. I don't know if others agree. Yeah, so this is like a pretty dumb way to basically put, I guess, code on Bitcoin blockchain. It's pretty expensive going forth, right? You could imagine as many people take advantage of this and store arbitrary data, the price you pay now is a lot different later when you have to transact and maintain a full node because the node is a lot larger now. So, I mean, different chains do different things. You could run a partial node. There's pruning involved in the node. Here, this is funny because I'm not too familiar with Bitcoin Core, but what I understand is there's a bunch of opcodes, and in certain ones you can store data. And this one, I guess there's the parameterized aspect of it. It limiting how much data you can store is non-existent. And so a bunch of people started making inscriptions, and now they have all these they have all this code, I guess, on the blockchain that's immutable. You can't change it, and that's kind of the security behind it, and you can transact based on it. I don't really know how it works exactly, but this CVE, I guess the maintainers going out of the way to even make one is a way of them saying, hey, inscriptions are not for Bitcoin. Screw off. And yeah, so them making a CVE out of it confirms their thought process behind the whole concept altogether.